Hey Cathy, I'm just going to do a quick rundown here on the video that we took from you the other day on the 14th. Um, and what we're going to look at are a couple things. I'm going to talk about blade depth, I'm going to talk about compression, and then I'm going to talk about releases because I think those are sort of the biggest things that we're seeing. So if we just let this play here for a bit, we'll ultimately use your stroke at about 12 seconds. But if we come up here, we notice looking at compression. So this here, you're a little bit shy of full compression, but that's actually not too bad. That's pretty close, right? So you're looking probably 85 degrees instead of 90, so that's not too bad. You've got nice forward pivot. Your arms are nice and extended. You've got blades squared. They're out of the water. This looks pretty good. So now, if we advance this, and we're going to watch at the entry here. So we look at the compression. That's pretty good. Right now what we should do is just basically lift the hands to drop these blades into the water. And what we see though is, as we advance, they're buried, and we see here now how much of that leg compression has been lost. So we'll back it up here again a bit. So right here, we're looking pretty good. And then watch the shin angle here, right? So this tells us we're starting that drive, and we can watch the tip of the blade here as well as it travels forward on this angular path towards the stern. So we see it going forward, we see it going forward, we see the shins driving, shins are driving, and now the blades are buried. So until this point here, we don't actually have any grab on these blades. So they're not really propelling the boat. All we're doing right now actually is if the boat is traveling in this direction, so we're heading towards the bow, we're pushing our feet without a countervailing force here. We're pushing our feet towards the stern. So that's actually going to be slowing the boat down. So as we're doing this here, we're slowing the boat, and now we're grabbing, and now we're reaccelerating the boat up. So that's one thing we want to do, right? Really focus on lifting those hands a little bit earlier to get them into the water. There we go, we'll back up here. So there, lift at this point here, continue forward, and now we would be in the water if we'd been lifting that entire time. Then we can drive and accelerate, and then we're going to maximize that. So we're going to go up to about 11 seconds here. Okay, so again, we see really good compression on this one. This one, you get really nice compression. Again, good forward position. We got our head up. That's nice. Our arms are extended. We see the blades out, squared. This looks really good. And look at that. Okay. So now we're going to watch the blade here as well. We're going to watch the shins. We'll slow it forward, and blades are buried here. So we had all that really good compression, but nothing there to really grab and push against. So until this point here, we're actually not, and we're probably not locked till about here actually. So here is about where we start propelling the boat, because that first bit there's going to be a little bit of slippage on the water before the blades are fully buried and locked in. Here though, you hold the body in front of the hips very nicely through the leg drive. You find the arms pretty well. We see a little tension here, and that could be solved through the drive by lowering these hands a little bit. So if we relax those shoulders, those hands should come down a little bit, and we can see how those blades are being pushed a little deep. So one thing that we want to look at here now, as we come out, so when we're passing the knees with the hands, we can sort of see how high up they are. So we'll just back it off here a little bit. So we see the height here, we see the depth of the blades. But now watch here, from here to when we get to about here on the thigh, watch how much those hands actually drop down very quickly. And there we see, so if we stop it, let's back it up just a touch here. There we go. So now we finish here just sort of at the top part of the thigh, and we look at where they are down here compared to up here where they were just when you passed the knees. See that difference in height there? So that's been a pretty drastic drop. And when we think of the distance between our knee and our upper thigh, it's actually not that far a distance. So we want to make sure though that we try to hold those hands level. So lower them a little here, hold that level a little bit longer, and then drop them down at the release. And that should give you a little more horizontal push on those blades through the stroke itself. So now we're going to look at the one thing that jumped out to me the most, aside from, actually, look at that. That's nice compression though, this one here. That would be a really good stroke if you went into the water right there. Now, we're going to look at your extraction here now. And the extraction is probably one of the bigger issues as well that I was sort of seeing. So we come here, the hands slowly drop. Then you come out here, your blade is looking like it's going to extract pretty nicely. It's coming out on the square. You're getting good height on that blade. And then here's what we're going to see. And we always talk about how blades can feather in two ways. We can bring the bottom of the blade up to the top or the top down to the bottom. So there we go. So now we can bring this part of the blade up to this height when we square it by maintaining the hand heights, or we can roll it so that this part drops down to match the height of the bottom. We're going to watch and see what happens here. So then, there we go. So now if we look at the water level, we look where the blade is, we see that the blade has actually dropped down, whereas it was extracting very nicely, and we were setting ourselves up for a very clean release. We've dropped the top down, and both blades are just resting on the water here. And then as we go along, we see this trail here, and that's basically like driving with the emergency brake on, right? And as we come through, oh, we can tell you've hit again here. So again, we're slowing the boat down. Oh, and look how long this one drags on, and we're still attached here. So this is a pretty long, there we go, and then we finally come off just before the catch. With nice compression, blade's nice and squared, out of the water, good arm hang, good body position. So we're doing a lot of good things. We've got a lot of good body position stuff happening here. This is looking like really solid. But if we hadn't had that brake on, that whole recovery there, and then we see here, that one wasn't even too bad, right? We lost some of the angle, but not too much. But if we hadn't had those brakes on, that would have been a really clean recovery that would have maintained a lot of our speed. So we watch this here again. And again, we see arms hanging pretty nice, shoulders are hanging in front. And now we're gonna watch and see the drop of the hands here. There you go, we see that drastic drop of the hands from the knee point to the upper thigh. Here we're going to watch the blade as it starts to come out. It's looking pretty good, right? We see a squared blade extracting from the water, but now the top part flops down. And we see both blades again resting on the water. We move away. We see how this here is dragged. We see this little tail bit here where it's dragged on the water. And then on the recovery, we see a little tap here. We're seeing a little tap here. But all these little things will add up. So there you go. So that's sort of what we're seeing, and I'm going to use my video. So I hope I don't sound like I'm being arrogant here on this one, but because heaven knows I've got my own problems. But I do think my extractions hopefully will sort of be indicative of what I'm talking about. So when we look at this here, and you can see me reach for a little more there at the catch. So again, I'm not perfect. But we see the entry here. We see a bit of backsplash, bit of backsplash. We see the compression. So from there to the entry point, we see the hands move. We see the hands move as the blades are going in. There we go. Now we see some of the leg drive. So let's go on to the, we're going to go to the release. So here we come through. We see the blades coming out nice and squared. Hands are drawing across, and then here we see the bottom of the blade start to come up, and we're going to see here when it finally feathers, the top part of the blade there hasn't actually dropped down any. The bottom part has come up. So we're just going to back off here. So there's the top of the blade basically, and we're going to look at sort of this yellow bit here, and we can see sort of the height of the blade with that, and we can see there how the bottom has come up to just underneath that yellow marker on the boat, right? So that's going to get our blades hopefully very clear out of the water, so as we do the entire recovery, we're not going to have any of those trailing drags in position, and set us up nicely for the next catch, where we can put the blades in with nice full compression here, and then get a good drive right from the get-go. So that's what we're sort of looking at for that release, right? We want to push down, bring those bottoms up, and leave lots of room. Let's get back to a release. Here we go. And get lots of room underneath that spoon between it and the water. That's going to give us lots of room and lots of margin for error that way as well. So if the boat isn't fully balanced, that's okay, because we've got a little bit of play between each of those blades, so the boat can kind of roll side to side, and we're still not going to tap and slow our boat down. We've given ourselves a little bit more leeway to have balance issues and still maintain that speed. So there you go. So that's sort of what I'm looking at from this video here. All right, we want to make sure that we maximize that compression, maximize use of it, and you're actually not even getting bad compression. So when you come up, look at that. That's totally fine on your compression. That is good compression, right? We just need to maximize the use of it where we get those blades buried, and this one's still not even buried. So we go to there. There we go. We're utilizing that top end push here when we get the blades buried. And again, like, body positioning and the mechanics of the motion are pretty nice. We just need to level those hands out. Then when we extract here, keep that push down, bring that bottom part up to the top rather than dropping down and landing back on the water. So those are basically the main things that I'm seeing when we look at this. Again, don't get discouraged, because like I say, there's a lot of good stuff going on, and the body mechanics, which is the big part, are there. They're pretty solid. It's now the refinement of the blade work that we actually need to really maximize the speed and let that run of the boat happen. So I hope this has been somewhat helpful for you, and there you go. I'll send you a link for this very shortly.